what's one
whole diagonal from A4 to king on E8 is open.
So what's wrong with bishop takes H6, bishop takes H6, queen takes H6, and if rook takes queen, it's checkmate, no?
Okay, so now I like how you're thinking, right? So you actually basically answered my
Bishop
next
takes
question,
pawn.
right? But the almost checkmate idea that I was trying to think about, right, was this move. Right now, of course, it's not good, right? Because if knight f6, bishop takes f6. But I'm thinking about that, right? It's almost checkmate, right? If black didn't have the bishop there, it would be checkmate. So you want to think about decoys. How could I distract the bishop? And yeah, I think bishop takes h6 is the right idea, right? Because rook takes h6. What does white play now?
Then the queen takes the rook.
No, queen to
Queen takes rook.
Yeah, queen takes the rook, because if the bishop takes, it's checkmate. Oh, he plays the knight, yeah.
Right, so instead, okay, black plays knight takes d5, but okay, you just take on g7 and you're winning.
Now I know what
Right, so you're using the checkmate ideas in order to get a winning material advantage type of game. Okay, so let's close this window and go into this little study that I created, which is actually just the game that Walt played against actually this pretty strong international master a few months back. Okay, so here we go. Right, d4, knight f6, c4, d5, b5. So very interesting opening. Does anyone know what this is? Does anyone know what this is called? By any chance? I don't know the name of this.
Aki quiet, I know.
Okay.
I play this. This is what I play.
This is called the Benko Gambit. And it's a very interesting line, right? So you really should take. Because if you play queen c2, like you did, I don't know if this queen necessarily belongs on c2, right? It might belong on other places, right? So this is the best thing to actually do against the Benko. So c takes d5. So it's kind of interesting. Black actually sacks a pawn, right? Takes. And now, what I learned is the best idea to do here is this f3 and e4 and get a really nice center. So d6, e4. Now, it's a little bit weird, right? Because after this trade, of course, white could no longer castle, right? So at first, it kind of looks like, okay, maybe white's not doing that well. But the truth is, right, and don't get me wrong, this is a normal opening for black. It's not like, you know, people often ask me about gambits, right? Are they good? Are they bad? Most often, they're not the best opening. You know, at the top level, you really don't see many grandmasters playing the King's Gambit. You know, you don't see them playing the Danish Gambit, right? Or all these gambits. Benko is like probably one of the few that you'll, even then, not see so often at the top levels, but you'll see it sometimes. So anyway, the idea here is, yeah, so why is this camera giving me such a hard time? I don't know why. I don't know. I have one other camera. Let me just do that and it'll work. Okay. So anyway, the idea here is Right, basically, black gets some pressure on the B file. Right, black also has the semi-open A file, and basically he's going to get some positional compensation, but not really more than enough. So, normally he'll be in shadow, right, bring out knight C3, and okay, it's a relatively solid position, for white. Does anyone have any questions or thoughts about that?
I have a thought. What are you gonna do with that king? That white king?
Well, the idea here is it's actually just not that bad. Like castles, bishop e3, you really don't have to do that much with the king right away. Right? Because the truth of the matter is, right now, the king, is relatively solid. And despite the fact that the king is actually in the center, you're actually not going to be doing that much with the king right now anyhow. Right? Because for the most part, right, your play is actually not over there, but rather on the queen side.
So are you doing, is the rook gonna be left on h1 then?
Is the rook going to be on h1?
Do you move the king to f2 or do you play h4?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think either necessarily. I think in this position, okay, like knight d7, queen d2, right? And then white also has this idea of knight c1 and knight d3. But anyway, I don't want to talk the whole class about the theory
Okay.
of the Benko. So okay, here we go. Queen c2, g6, e4. So white has a nice center. He kind of like insists on giving you the pawn. So there you go, knight f3. So usually you want to in chess develop your king side pieces before your queen side pieces, right? Because you're normally going to castle there. But actually, in some of these queen pawn lines, it actually makes more sense to develop your queen side knight first, because a lot of it has to do with constructing against this bishop on c8. Okay, so right, because when you play knight f3, you're kind of allowing him to probably either now or a little bit later play bishop g4 and trade it off. So I actually think it would make a little bit more sense to develop the knight on c3 first. Okay, so knight f3, castles, knight c3, a6, a4. What's your idea of a4?
You're asking me? I just wanted to solidify that queen side.
Well, the thing is, right, you're also making a little bit of weaknesses, right? So every single time you make a pawn move, you're making a little bit of a weakness. Right, so for instance, right now, okay, I can see this b4 square, right? So like, for instance, black should maybe play queen a5 immediately, and look at some of these squares. Right, so I think in this position, probably makes more sense just to develop bishop d3 and castle. But okay, a4, knight d7, right? So it takes, take with the knight over the bishop?
I did it because I think that it was a good outpost. And I think he's going to attack the knight, and I've got it protected with the bishop and maybe later on with the queen. That's why I did it. But
So
you could-
fair enough, right? And one thing I will say is, right, very often I would say some mistakes, and I wouldn't say knight takes b5 is a mistake by any means, but I will say some, you know, maybe slightly inferior moves often do actually happen when you have multiple ways to recapture it, right? So here, of course, you can't take with the pawn, you either
Right.
take the bishop or the knight, right? But the thing is, when you play knight takes b5, you're removing it from the center, right? And I think more of your action here is probably on the king side than the queen side. Right? So I don't really know if knight takes b5 is going to help your cause. Because now black also has potential ideas of like, not right away, but like for instance, queen a5. See, like white actually has this good move, bishop d2. But like for instance, if white played knight c3, what would black do here? It's actually a very thematic idea. The Benoni and Benko. That guy's a neat little trick here. It's actually very, very common.
You could take my pawn. Can he take my pawn with his knight? Can he
Knight
take
takes
e4?
e4. What is he going to play after knight takes e4? Or you, since you're actually playing white in the game. Right, so if you were to play knight takes e4 in this position, right, what would white play?
I would put my, you know, it's me, I put my bishop on d2 probably.
Sorry, say that again?
I didn't analyze it this far, but I probably would have put my bishop on d2.
Yeah. Well, no, I agree. I agree. I agree. Right? White actually would have played bishop d2, right? Knight c3 is a losing move, in fact, right? But I'm just talking about this line because it's an important tactical idea to know, right? Because yeah, knight takes e4 here actually would be the correct idea because basically white's in a lot of trouble, actually, right? White has to play queen takes e4,
Mm-hmm.
and now bishop takes c3 check. Basically, he has to actually play king f1 here, and bishop g7, and okay, black is just doing very, very well in this position. Or maybe actually bishop f6 to protect this pawn, right? And black's king is in the middle of the open, and pawns are equal, and you know, basically black has the lead in development, and okay, a much better game. So, right, but if he, of course, plays b takes, queen takes, double attack, and of course, winning position. So there we go. So let's back it up and go over here. So a4, knight d7. Right, so yeah, I probably would have taken with the bishop.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and then you also have these light squares to attack. Okay, so knight takes b5, knight castles, bishop a6, knight d2, rook a3. Rook a3, I'm not so sure is going to help you or not.
That happens a lot in these lines.
Sorry, what,
Kinda.
Brian? Go ahead.
The Rook A3 is an idea to sometimes in these lines you want to leave the knight on B5 and it just relieves the pin. I don't know. I've seen it in similar lines, but I don't know if I've seen it in this particular line. Because right now there is no pin threat because the bishop can take the knight if the bishop takes the knight. But Rook A3 is something
Or
I've
is
seen
F5
played.
just trapping the knight?
Well, that's better.
Yeah. Well, he's not losing a knight because he does have bishop takes b5.
Oh yeah.
But after bishop takes b5, knight g4, and like knight c4, I imagine white has a really nice position. Now he does have some like dark square control, so it's not completely clear. But I do think black has, yeah, white is much better. Okay, and the computer agrees with me. Good.
Well, I just want to say, I thought this was my best game ever, and you guys are killing me.
Sorry.
I like it.
No, it's good. I mean, look, this is
Well, I did it to break that pin. That's why I did it.
Friday mornings at 9 a.m. I actually have a mastermind with my business coach and 8 other entrepreneurs, and he just like takes us apart. So really, but then at the end of it, he says, "You are loved every week." Which is awesome. So, but I know. I mean, Rook A3, right? Actually, guess what? It's the computer's best move. So, let me be quiet. All right, there we go. Bishop takes, knight d7. I mean, knight f6, knight c4. Right? I would probably play f4. Right? And then you want to plant the knight on c4 and not allow him to exchange. Right, now you can do something like passive and knight c4, and now look at your knight, right? Super strong. All right, think about probably winning the match here.
Those black knights also get in the way of each other sometimes. So right now, the black knights can't get in the way of each other because you're trading off your knight.
It's such a rush to take that knight, right? So you don't obviously want him to play knight e5 and get maybe some counterplay, right? But I actually really like your bishop on d5. You got the 2 bishops now. You got a lot of weak light squares to attack. I'd probably just play f4.
Yeah, I see.
Right? Now, okay, here's a check. Bishop d4 check. Your king walks away, and now I think, computer's going to say probably at least 1.5, 2.5.
Oh wow.
Winning position. Well, if you think about it, I mean, white's up a pawn, 2 bishops, a lot of light squares to attack, right? Big advantage.
Yeah, you're right. I see it, but I'm always afraid to move a pawn in front of my king. It's just something that I'm afraid of. That's stupid, I know, but that's how I play.
Look, it's a common. I think what a lot of, and this is something we all should learn from, right? And the idea is, so the idea is, right? We need to almost like take a step back sometimes from the basic opening and middle game and end game principles, that you learn when you're a beginner, right? And even when I teach them to beginners, right, things like don't move your f pawn, don't bring your queen out too early, castle as soon as you can. Right, all these things. Right, even in the very beginning, I don't say they're rules. Right, I say they're guidelines. Right, of course, there's a difference. So the idea is, right? So for instance, I once was teaching a beginner a couple months ago, just like second grader, and he didn't capture one of my pawns, and I said, "Oh, why didn't you do that?" "Oh, because I didn't want to bring out my queen too early." And but I was like, wasn't it a free pawn?" He's like, "Yeah." I'm like, okay, so you should have taken it, right? So the point is, right? Right, if you look here, like, yes, in general, you don't want to move pawns in front of your king, of course. Right, but the truth is, well, a couple things. Right, one, there's a bunch of pieces traded off already. Number two, the center is actually relatively close. Right? If you took off all these pawns in the center, yeah, I'd be a little bit more reluctant to play something like f4. Right, weakening my king a little bit. And the third really big thing is, well, okay, he could play bishop d4 check, but guess what? He's not going to checkmate you with just his bishop. Right? So you need at least on average, right, this is actually another, not rule, but guideline, that you need at least 3 pieces to orchestrate a good attack. Okay, so bishop takes d7, queen takes d7. So as you can see, right, the computer said, right, you went from like almost up a piece to basically up a pawn. Which is still a very good position, of course, winning position. So b3, and bishop d2. An idea. a5. So a5, I think, might be a little bit premature. So here, your pawn, right? Clearly, you had a very, very successful opening, right, in the middle game. This is sort of transitioning now from the middle game to the end game, right? Even though, yeah, it's only move 20, right? You're already transitioning here, sort of to the end game. So I think it's really important to come up with some sort of plan here, right? So right here, you have obviously a much better position. You're up a pawn. You have an outside pass pawn. But that doesn't mean you need to start moving it so quickly, right? Because, like, for instance, now he played queen b5. Right? Every pawn move makes a little weakness. So how could White just, and don't overthink this, how could White just improve this position?
I could have brought my rook over.
What about just advancing the G pawn to G5 to break?
Your G pawn, you said? Or the A pawn? You're on mute now, Michael.
Pardon me. It's the E pawn.
So to move the E pawn, well, right. Oh, so you want to play something like F4 to try to move your.
Got the bishop. It's got.
F4 to play E5. Is that what you were talking about?
Yes.
Well, it's possible, but it's going to take you a long time to get E5 in. Right, and I don't know if you'll be able to, right? Because you're not threatening to do it yet, right? And if he just plays like, like rook a6, double up, okay, you could all of a sudden get some counterplay. So that's why I think in this position, right, a simple, probably best move, I think, is just develop the rook and play b4. Yeah, computer like rook b1. And it's just a good positional move, right? And that, by the way, is just based on simple principles, right? So, okay, rook b1. E5, rook a6. And so now that pawn becomes a target. Oh, so actually, one more thing about this, which is worth noting, right? You always want to try to keep your pawns on the opposite color as your bishop. Right, so by playing a5, it's actually going on the same color. Okay, so here, bishop c3. So bishop c3, right? Like, yes, there's an opening principle. There's a simple principle, right, that you want to trade when you're at material. But the idea here is this bishop is defending this pawn, right? And a lot of these critical squares, right? Whereas this bishop right now, even though it looks really, really, really good, there's nothing going on this diagonal, right? So sometimes you want to, look under the surface, right? On the surface, this bishop is like absolutely amazing, right? On this, as long as possible diagonal. But the truth is, not doing that much, right? So I would still probably play rook b1 and b4. You should be winning.
The bishop might come to b2.
What?
I mean,
rook b1?
No, not after rook b1, but I'd see. So you want to play rook b1 to prevent it. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think this has got to be winning for what? Yeah, winning for what? So bishop c3, right? Now, yeah, right, black takes and plays queen b4, and now he has all these active pieces, right? So he's close to equality. Queen takes, rook takes, f3. Right now it's like just equal. Okay, so king f8. Black actually missed apparently this nice little resource of f5 attacking the center. But he played king f8, king f2, rook d1, okay, takes. Rook takes would be a little bit more intuitive to me, right? Because you want to be eyeing at this backward pawn on b6, being on a semi-open file. E takes d5, king f6.
Yeah, but this is when I started crying because I was ahead and now I'm not.
But, I'm glad you mentioned that, Walt, because psychologically, one of the most important challenges, and I actually talked about this with Susan Polgar on my podcast episode with her. One of the most challenging things, right? Can you pull that one up as well? Thank you. Right, one of the most challenging things is keeping stamina, right? Which is like why we teach at law firms, and it's all about judgment training and keeping the correct mindset, right? So yeah, that is very important to play this as a brand new game almost. Okay, so f4. Okay, h3. Okay, so like now, yeah, it's just a pretty equal position, of course. Yeah, it's just pretty equal here. Yeah, so it's equal pawns. You have to go get that pawn. You have to play rook a1, of course. King e3, rook takes. King f4. Yeah, and this is just, of course, equal. Draw. Well, yeah, I mean, one thing you certainly did well at in this game, actually, psychologically, is you kept your cool afterwards. I honestly, like many games I've lost, purely because I messed up a winning position, and then before I knew it, I was completely losing. So, it's very easy to do.
Because each has been sent as a guide.
Okay. Does anyone have any?
For going over the game with me was, for me, it was great. I hope it wasn't boring for the other guys.
It
But
was a great result, of course.
Be quiet.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah. Great. So actually, I was gonna go through a Arpov game, a Kasparov game specifically for Curtis. I don't think he's here, so maybe we'll do that next time. Okay. Does anyone else have any games that they've played recently that they might want to search?
Exhale. Letting the body soften and the shoulders start to melt down.
Does anyone else?
Beginning to wash over you.
I didn't hear your question.
Please do so
I just said,
now
does anyone else have a game maybe that they played recently that they would want to look
in
at?
order to allow your mind and body to fully relax. Affirm that you will participate
Okay.
wholeheartedly.
Brian, do you want to do something?
Resolve to remain awake and aware.
Yes, I can do a couple
Stay
things.
connected to the sound of my voice.
Okay, so
And trust in my careful guidance.
let's look at some.
Guide you into deeper.
I'll share my screen.
If thoughts or sounds disturb you from time to
Brian,
time,
can you do me a favor? Maybe do it
Don't
in
worry.
the same study.
just come back to the sound of my
Do it
voice.
in the same study.
Let nothing disturb you. Outside,
Okay, let's see. Let's see if it works.
now shift
That way, it's like
from the busyness of
everything
thinking and doing
organized together.
to a deeper
Like
state
future classes.
of feeling.
Okay. So you're seeing the arrow when I do.
Drop
Okay,
into
great, it
silent
works.
space.
Perfect. Okay, there's some noise on the line, so. All right, so I'm going to set up a position in this study. Word editor.
Nothing else will work.
Go to the new chapter that I just created.
Ah, yes, new
Begin to
chapter.
focus on the most distant sounds you can hear,
Okay,
following them for a few moments.
so. Create chapter, word editor. Okay, so is it editing?
Move your attention
No, it
from
isn't.
sound to sound without labeling the source. Gradually move your attention to closer sounds. From sounds outside your room.
There is some noise on the line. Okay, so
Sounds close to the body.
analysis board.
To the sound of your breath.
Sorry, it's a little. I'm figuring this out is a little longer,
Sound
but
of the exhalation.
I almost have it. Okay, so let's look at this position. This is a queen ending gone wrong, you could say. A queen ending gone wrong. And
Without opening your eyes, visualize the four
queen
walls.
endings often go wrong. Hold on, there's some noise on the. Okay, so in this position, what black should do, I mean, probably the easiest way for black to win this is, oh wait, I have it as white to move. Okay, let me fix that. Let me fix that. King here, queen here, king here, queen here, king here. Okay, now it's black. Now it's black to move. Okay, so what black should do is probably something like queen b4, king c2, queen c4, king b2, and king d2, and just promote this pawn. Evan, we don't see it on your.
Brian, I lost the screen.
Yes,
Yeah,
Evan,
too.
it's
I'll
off
tell you
the.
what, share your screen.
Yes, I will do that. All right. You see my screen now?
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so this is probably what black should do, is where you go queen b4, queen c4, and just move the king out of the way, and then push the pawn. Okay, so what black did do, unfortunately, what black did do is black made a huge blunder and pushed this. So now I ask you, why is this a blunder? I think this was between two very strong players. I don't know if they were international masters or grandmasters, but now white has a very strong or series of moves.
Move your attention to different parts of your body as soon as you hear the name. Repeat the name to yourself mentally. Feel that part of the body.
Okay. So the question is, what should white do here? Why is this a mistake?
White can play queen to G1 check,
Queen G1, king here.
right? And you can throw another check.
Where?
Oh, I was going to say to C1, but then,
King
yeah.
here.
Right, queen. Oh no, wind up trading to pieces.
Okay. By the way, I'll give a hint. This went from winning to losing. White, this isn't even drawing anymore. White just has a winning position now.
Check. I can't figure it out.
And you go G1, C1, and then C3. Doesn't that work? With the queen, I mean.
Yes, that's checkmate. Queen G1, Queen C1, and Queen C3 is checkmate. So I'm sure black, the person who played black was very angry when this happened, from going up in a clear winning position to totally losing and being checkmated. So you have to be really careful, even in these simple end games where you're up a pawn and you're about to promote. So this is checkmate. And we're gonna look at another funny situation that happened with the same player who played black in this position and ruined the game, got another position. Let's open up the board editor. Got another position where it was another queen ending. And this time, it was white who made the mistake. The same person who was named Samagan was playing black, and this time white made a huge error. Okay, so in this position, white has the chances in this queen ending, and white made a huge blunder. This is probably a drawn game, but white played this move, king g4. And this is a losing move. So the question is why? Why is this a losing move?
Queen to f5, no?
Queen f5, king goes here. Queen f5, king goes here, and I don't see any follow-up check. So it's not queen f5 because there's no follow-up checks after queen f5.
I see. Okay, can I guess again?
Sure.
The pawn to f5, check.
Pawn f5. Okay.
Take
So,
en passant, and now you could, right? Take en
Okay.
passant. lose
yeah,
it.
pawn f5. You can't.
Takes en passant.
Okay, so yeah, let's look at first moving the king, and then we'll look at takes en passant. If you move the king, then there is the checkmate on h1. So you have to take. And then what was the follow-up?
Now you could do queen to f5.
Queen f5, king h4.
Now queen to h5.
Yes, queen f5, king h4, queen h5 is checkmate.
Yeah.
So yeah, another case of a huge blunder made in a queen ending. This king g4 line, and at first hard to see. f5 and here. Okay, so we are going to wrap up with something that could come up in a game. It doesn't often come up, but it can, where you end up with a position like this, where you're left with, where you have this rook here, and you have a queen. Does anyone know how this game should end if both sides play the best they can? Does anyone know how this game should end, where you have a queen versus a rook? Like, should white win? Should black win? Does anyone know?
In that position, I think it could be a draw.
Okay, you think it's a draw. Any other? Why do you think it's a draw, Gene?
Oh.
Why do you think it's a draw, Gene?
Well, I was thinking queen to d8 check, and then the king just moves over, but white doesn't have to do that.
Yeah. So if you go back and forth, it's just going to be
that's
a draw.
Yeah,
But there is a way to force a win. It's not easy, but first of all, let's look at this. This is not going to work because you are threatening mate. But after a move like rook here and king here, does anyone see a drawing resource for black? Like right away? Black has just a draw in one move, pretty much.
Yeah. Rook to c6 is a stalemate.
Rook c6 results in the stalemate, yes, because after king takes, this king has nowhere to go and is not in check, so therefore that is a stalemate. So you can't do things like this. The best way to force a win is to get the same position as this right now, only with black to move. And the way you can do that is queen here, queen here. Wait, no, I'm sorry. I messed that up. Queen here. You can't go king here because of queen there, so you go queen here, and then you go queen back. And now you have the same position, except it's black to move. Now you'll notice in this type of position that black has no real good moves other than to move the rook far away from the king. If you move rook here, checkmate in one, queen here is checkmate in one. If you move rook here, you just take it. If you move king here, who sees the winning move for white?
A5. No.
A5 would
No.
so what's the winning move for white here?
A8.
Queen A8.
A check.
Queen A8, rook blocks.
Then queen comes back to A6.
Look at it. I don't know if this wins. Because yeah, maybe this does win too. I don't know. And then maybe queen A7
H,
threatening
right.
mate.
Mhm.
Yeah, that might also win. And then there's no way to defend against checkmate. I saw I think an easier way, which was you can force the win of this rook right now. But I think this also works. I don't see. Yeah, just followed by queen here is good for a win too. But what's the other way? How do you force the win of this rook? We'll give a hint. It's a pin. A pin.
What if you just move the queen up one square?
Yeah, queen a6. Yes, queen a6, and you're just going to take the rook. Next move, the rook can't move anywhere because of this pin, and that seems like the simplest way to do it. So I guess the king has to move away, and you just take the rook. Okay. All right, so we covered that. We covered that the king can't move here, the rook can't move here, the rook can't move here. So the king can't move here or here because of check. So the only thing black can do is move the rook far away from the king. And as soon as the rook is far away from the king, it's vulnerable to double attacks. Let's look at some of those right now. Let's look at the more obvious ones first. So let's look at, say the rook moves here. How can we win the rook?
I'd move close to it with the king.
Oh,
D8, E6.
Queen to D8.
yes, king d6, the rook can just move back here and
Move farther away.
back to safety. But if we go queen d8, we force the win of the rook
Yeah.
because this is check, and then we're going to take the rook next move. So that's one of the more okay. And let's do also this one. What if the rook moves here? How can we force the win of the rook now?
E5.
Queen to E5.
Yes, queen e5 forces the win of the rook. If we move here, yes, because we're attacking the king and we're attacking the rook. All right, let's say rook goes here.
You still have the same queen E5 move.
Mhm.
Yep, same thing, queen e5. Okay, it's more difficult though when the rook ends up either here, 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 or here. But you can also force the win of the rook on those squares as well. Not as easy, but you can still do it. I don't know which one should we do first. Let's do this one first. Now, this is a more difficult question. How can we force the win of the rook now? It's not necessarily easy. But I'll give you a hint. We have to keep checking the king with our queen. That's your hint.
Well, you can check the king on D8.
Okay, queen d8, king here. Let's go back.
C7. Queen C7.
Queen c7, king here. All right, queen c7, king here. Oh, sorry, queen c7, king here. There's probably multiple ways of doing it, but there's one I think that's easier. I don't know if this will help, but you will end up on this square attacking the rook and the king. I don't know if that's a hint, but that's where you'll finally end up after a series of 2 or 3, 1, 2, 3 moves.
Queen to D8 check.
Queen d8, king here.
Right.
Case method, Brian, or is that something else?
What?
Is this the staircase method, or is that something else?
Staircase method. This is just where the rook, this is like queen versus rook, where the rook has to move far away from the king, and you just have to force the win of the rook. I don't know if it's a staircase method.
I don't know. I'm trying to sound smart.
What approach is to chase the rook?
I was looking at this once before, and there was like a staircase method of winning the rook.
Oh, maybe. I don't know. I just see 1, 2, 3, and then you win the rook.
But don't you have to walk the queen over to the the E? Well, I'm sorry. You have to walk the queen over to the F7 square with continued checks on the 7th and 8th rank.
Okay, so maybe like check, 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 check.
Yeah.
The unfortunate thing is black does not have to go this way. Black can go. I'm sorry, my connection is a little spotty. Black can go here, though, to make it more difficult for you. But yeah, if black goes here, then you can force it with check and check.
Yeah.
But if
Right.
but black can go here, so that makes it a little more challenging because this square is covered by the rook, so you can't do a checkmate. But we don't have a lot of time, so maybe I'll just give a hint with the first move. The easiest way to do that, the first move is queen here. This is the first move, and then now we can win the rook in 2 moves. In other words, check and then a double attack.
So now it's A5.
Advance the king 1 square.
Well, if you advance the king, the rook's just going to come back, and you're going to be in this annoying check situation. So you You want to do a queen. I'm sorry. You want to do a queen
This
check.
is a DM.
You want to do a
for the
queen
Sophie
check
Queens
and
and
then
unheard
you
things.
check again.
They're
You win
change
the rook.
makers and booty shakers, calling all the lip syncers and out the box thinkers. The ones turning the tables and ditching the labels.
Not easy.
Paging
I
the
know,
climate
not
crusades,
easy, but
explorers, trailblazers.
very
The
informative.
ones who make us laugh out loud and the ones who make us proud. To you, to me, to the future we want to see. Let me hear you say,
Yeah.
we make today.
Yeah, so I didn't really have
Oh,
a few
I'll
time
give the answer, I guess.
Yeah, good, go for it.
All right. So queen here wins.
So
the
that's my
queen
story.
here. If the king goes here, you checkmate here. And if the king goes here, you win the rook.
Yep.
Did I say
26.
c7? I meant.
Well, by modern standards,
Okay.
26 for a grandmaster is old. I
so
gotta
this
tell you
one's
that.
the
You
rook,
have these
right?
kids, 15-year-old grandmasters, popping left and right.
Yeah.
Let me just add this.
Oh,
The king will
thank
have
you,
to
thank you
make
so much.
the
Wall
right
grabber
move for you
the
to do
raid.
the double
Really
check and
appreciate
the
it.
pin of the rook.
Thank you, thank you,
I would
thank you.
suggest to the
Thank you,
grandmasters
thank
that
you.
I would go after the rook
That was a
and
great
hope that the
story.
rook
Yeah, that was a fun
be
story. You can
misplaced.
make GM while working.
Move my king out
Well,
of the way.
You gotta
Go after
remember
the
that
rook
the 2 years that I
because
spent
the
really
king will
working
try to
hard at
protect the
chess,
rook.
that was probably the reason why I became a GM.
Likewise.
It just so happened that I became a GM a little bit later, but the Sanford Fellowship, $32,000 a year, that pretty much took care of all my expenses. I think that was the key reason why I became a GM, because I got to work with getting the best coaches. What is the benefit of getting chess openings explained? Well, if you want to learn openings, I think it's kind of self-explanatory there, right? I'm teaching you openings, concept-based. I'm not, in the philosophy of like memorizing, deep 20 moves deep lines for no reason, because what's the point if you forget some line? I'm more about concepts. Once you understand concepts, it's good for life, right? That's my